I just had to record and share this conversation I had with my friend Caleb Nelson. Caleb is a relationship coach and podcaster. And in this conversation we had, he tells of a challenge he set himself to be naked on Sundays, to take all his clothes off for a whole day every week on Sundays. And he shares about the experiences that led him to, and also about the breakthroughs that he had through his Naked Sundays. And now Naked Sunday is also the name of Caleb's coaching business and his podcast. So it's a privilege for me to talk to somebody with great insight into how together a couple can create a great life and great connection. So he shares his secret sauce that he works with couples on developing. But also it was a privilege to talk to somebody who's wholeheartedly pursued their own passions, who has created and curated a life that they really love, and that energy really comes through from Caleb. So you're going to enjoy his vibe, you're going to enjoy his humor and the way that he has made courageous choices to show up the way he does. So I'll hand you over to my conversation with Caleb. When the recording came through, it had only picked up him. So you can hear my voice. I'm very much there in the conversation, but this is just Caleb taking center stage for this conversation we had. And I wondered if you would just begin by telling me a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Caleb Nelson. I own a company called Naked Sunday. Sometimes I spend Sunday naked, truly, and sometimes it's just walking around vulnerable. So, naked in many senses. But I have a deep obsession with vulnerability and the pursuit of happiness. And that's what I like to do a lot of my work with. I live in New York State as of right now, and I have a lovely wife. I think one of my greatest responsibilities is being a good husband to her. And I've got my lovely little dog next to me who also just gives me tons of unconditional love and affection. So I'm just a happy camper all around.
So tell me, well, first of all, tell me, Naked Sunday, what do you do through your business? And then also I'd love to hear the story behind that. Where did that come from?
Sure. So Naked Sunday, I guess I'll start with the story and then I'll lead to what it happened and what it is. So it ultimately is coaching, but Naked Sunday was a habit, a behavior that I did every Sunday. My wife and I eventually were doing it together, but initially just me. And I was at a point in my life, just at a crossroads, and I would just sit naked by myself on a Sunday all day long. Mm. And this became a process by which I more or less learned to like myself, love myself, and be happy with myself. What I didn't realize when I started was that I had some really nasty self-talk. I was brutal on myself in many ways, though I sometimes had some inklings of those, but it was and not until I stared those things straight in the face and did it every single week. Now that was the internal part, but on the external, what happened was first I realigned my health. I was towards the tail end of owning a gym at that point. I was the heaviest I'd ever been, not happy in my body, not happy in my mind. So on the surface, it helped me lose 40 pounds. And then it transpired into building a deeper and more meaningful relationship with my wife because we had more open and honest and real conversations, not only about the moment, but about the future. And also changed the nature of how I go about my work, which is now really just helping people more or less do the same. What do you want for yourself? How do you build a better relationship with the people you're sharing your life with? How do you build a business that is in alignment with all those things? Because you start to find a lot of people start to resent their business. They got into it for one reason. They learned that they didn't like a certain way about it and they wanted to pivot. And when you can put all those things in alignment, crazy things happen, such as you look better naked, you have better relationships with your significant others, and you love your business and you make more money doing it. So, and on the inside, you feel happier, perpetually. So, I call those the harmony between those three things. I call it the Nexus of Happiness. And the more we can align those things and be true to those things, you're happier more often, and I'm just finding more prosperity comes with that.
Mm.
So as opposed to where most people are chasing like, I'll be happy when, or happy with this, or when I get that, then it's how about you're happy first, and then in that stability and that peace and that happiness and that wellness, people are attracted to that. Resources are attracted to that because it's a stable place for prosperity to grow.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm sure that works. I've seen that work. And there's a couple of interesting things I want to dig a bit deeper in what you just said. First of all, so I mean, you it tripped off your tongue so easily. You used the phrase of I stared that thing down. I felt those things coming up, and I dealt with some of my negative inner talk. Could you break that down for us? For somebody for whom that sounds like an impossible result, could you take us through step by step? What did that actually look like? What was some of the actual practices you developed or ways in which you changed that inner reality?
For sure. So ironically enough, I've talked to a lot of people who can't even sit naked at all for any few minutes, let alone even look at themselves naked in the mirror. So from that perspective, just from this, the nakedness is more about the idea of being vulnerable and about being real. So
Mm.
staring in the mirror is going to be, I think of it as a habit based thing anyway, and habits come down to dosing. How far do you feel comfortable pushing that threshold, and at that threshold where you still feel safe enough that you can control it. I would even consider it like flow state, especially a lot of people who are in the exercise world, flow state workouts, that kind of idea. It's enough to feel challenged, but still easy enough where you feel like you can be successful. So for
Mm.
me, I've dealt with a lot of things, and I like to just kind of throw myself into the fire. That was me. Like, here we go. I'm going to sit on Sunday. It was a little brash. I was probably also attracted to the idea of like, I'm going to sit naked with my wife on a Sunday. How's that probably going to work out? So there's a little external kind of drivers in that as well. But from a practical sense, what happened when I first would just like deal with these thoughts, it was just like, oh, look at you. You're not a good leader. You're not walking in alignment. Why would anybody listen to you? Again, with the gym at the time, it's like, you don't even look the part. And I've kind of realized over my life, I've struggled with some self-image stuff. And by that, I mean some stuff. I mean, a lot of it. But what was really powerful, and I give a lot of credit to my wife, is I just looked over at her at one, and I don't know why, but this question arose like, well, she loves me. Why does she love me? It's clearly not just for the physical. And to make this palatable or meaningful to the listeners right now is that there was empathy in that. It was seeing
Yeah.
myself more than just flesh and blood and sweat and whatever, there was a human component to this. And that empathy and that love allowed me to see myself as more than just these practical results. It was, how can I get there? And how do I bring love into this world? And what can I do with that? And to respect that, I was like, oh, well, if I want to be better at giving that love that she's loving me for, I need to respect this other thing, i.e., the physical vehicle at the time. That was the primary thing because I just needed to get my health and my head straight. So with that, what it allowed me to do with this softer, empathetic tone, a lot of people talk about having a drink, it takes the edge off. Well, this, I would dare say, was a healthier way of taking the edge off. It
Mm.
softened the judgment, and then allowed me to objectively look at the habits in the past week or the past month. I always use this example. It's like, well, on Tuesday, you were stressed out of your mind, you're bent out of shape because a sale or something like that didn't go through, whatever it was. And so you crushed a sleeve of Oreos. Maybe that wasn't super productive. Maybe that wasn't in alignment. So instead of it was like, you're bad for it, now it was, hey, so what can you do next time?
Yeah.
So it was all about removing the judgment. It was saying, hey, I'm observing you. I see you for what you are. I had softened that with the love and the empathy of having that other positive self-talk, which was the representation of my wife and my friends and other people I would bring into that mental equation. But then I could objectively look at it and say, like, okay, well, what's the first step? So on Tuesday next week, when I know that Tuesday, for whatever reason, happens to be a stressful time, maybe I just choose a salad, or maybe I have some more water, or maybe you're going to be stressed out. And what are some vehicles that help you relieve stress that are going to still not destroy the progress and the goals you're going towards. So I think I properly brought around to
You did.
how I went
That's, a,
about that.
that's absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I'm seeing more and more what is obvious at first glance, but this sitting naked, this being literally uncovered, is going to invite much more self honesty, but it's also going to invite. I didn't see this when you told me this story when we first met. Is going to invite you to be uncovered with your wife and allow her love in, because there's the kind of awful, irony about human beings is that we in on, we are vulnerable. We've got this soft front. Brené Brown talks about soft front. We've got this soft front and we cover up emotionally. But the very thing that we cover over is our heart from the love we so desperately want. And so, yeah, I see that like being the double whammy. I'm honest with myself, but I'm even opening up to your love. And I love the way that was like a catalyst to change you. And she became a vehicle for some more self love.
Yeah, I credit her to. I mean, we've been through some hard times before that, and our anniversary is coming up in the middle of May, and she's the first person where I ever was just like, "Hey, this is me. Deal with it." Like, and I know it sounds a little flippant off the rip, but I'd always been putting on a lot of facade and like this very grandiose type of I have to be all or nothing all the time, but she got the realest version of me and she continues to get the rough draft, which I give her a lot of credit for because I'm definitely not easy to be in a relationship with. Like I'm always lost off in my thoughts and I think in like clouds, and she's very organized and straightforward. But what I'll say is I give her a lot of credit because we went through some very difficult times. We built our relationship when I was going dead broke. I was having a business fallout. Literally all the external check boxes of hey, successful young man that a guy could like hang his ego on was eroding. And we built our love, and I built a new business with an amazing friend of mine during that time, and she deeply contributed to that. And in this new season where I went through this naked Sunday phase, I credit all that trust that she built up in that fashion at that time, and saying, she made me feel safe enough to even go there. So I know this part might sound a bit extreme, but I think back all the way there to saying, wow, I was naked there too. Maybe not the same way, maybe not in the physical form, but to marry those two pieces together in that exercise, and especially since she was doing it too. So, and we had a rule, it's like even when you're feeling bloated and gross and maybe a little groggy, a little tired, like you just don't, you literally just feel your worst in your body. It's like, no, we're going to sit there. We'd have arguments butt naked. And for all the men out there, just so you know, having a naked argument with your wife, like not covering up with a blanket or anything like that, like especially if it's cold, I'm a little cheeky with it, but whatever.
Brilliant. I love it.
I'm telling you, like, there is something, you find out something very powerful about yourself. Like, do you really believe in what you're saying right now? When, like, everything, like, any and all of your insecurities, any and all of the things that you might not know how to deal with, it's on for display. And you, like, if this is the point that you're trying to sit with and, like, where you're coming from, whether it's holding your ground on your values or saying you're gonna take action on something, there's something really pure about that. And all I can say, like from my own experiences, like it's been a really beautiful exercise in like being more self-aware of like, what do I really care about? Am I really being honest? And it's allowed other people to hold me accountable to that, which I think is very scary, because it's a strange way of saying like, hey, I'm asking you for help. Here's my flaws. You can point them out. I know you're coming from a place of love. So
Yeah.
I don't know that I know that I was kind of like rambled for a little bit, but I think if people can start to frame it in those types of contexts, they don't start to look at people's feedback as negative. They look at it as like, hey, you care about me.
Yeah.
How can we care together and be real? I want a real friend. I want a real partner, not somebody who just lets me settle for a lesser than life. Somebody who's going to say, I know you want this and I know you're capable of it. you can rise up to it. It's okay. So
Yeah. It's got to come with the love.
it's got to come with the love. If
Yeah.
it's not love first, like, it's going to crumble.
Yeah. Yeah, Caleb, you're inspiring me to spend more time naked.
I hope that we can. I had a guy who was a former client. He's a nudist basically, and he was he reached out to me and I was like, "What's this naked thing?" I was like, "Maybe I need to start a nudist colony. I don't know. We'll see where it goes."
No, it's really inspiring, and I'm just thinking, we you and I both live in cold climates. You got to crank the heating up because you can't be naked and snuggled under a blanket. That's not naked. You got to get rid of the blanket. Just be in your birthday suit.
In your birthday suit, yeah. I mean, that's something to like. That's even something worth reflecting on. We come into this life, like we come into it naked, raw, pure, unadulterated, just like I'm real. Babies don't lie. They don't know how to. Like, I'm upset, so I'm gonna cry. I gotta go to the bathroom. They go. Like, I'm hungry. I want food. They're just like, this is me, and they're unapologetic to it. I've even written about like dogs and your pets are like the same thing. Like, they don't know how to be anything other than them. Maybe we going back to that. It's almost like an interesting like Benjamin Button kind of situations. Like, maybe we find a way to back to being like this pure, like love that just was born into this world.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's so much we can learn from animals, pets, babies, children, because of that naivete that they have, that innocence and no guile.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah, my next question for you is going to be along those lines. I'll segue into, we can learn from kids and pets. What else has your marriage taught you? Because I mean, you've described a couple of really powerful lessons I can see have become the foundation for what you're now doing and so much of how you're now living. Is there anything else as you look back over how long have you guys been together or married?
We've been together almost 10 years. We're married almost 3 at this point of the recording. I think that one of the number one things is like, I had this saying, ironically enough, I said it to an ex-girlfriend before we went on our first date. I was like, I'm always nervous before something great happens. And to that effect, I've never been more terrified in my life of my wife. She's 5'2", 5'3", maybe, cute as a button, little cheerleader, whatever. Like a harmless, like 5th grade teacher, like all the love in the world. She scared the living daylights out of me, and I take that as a lesson now. It's the same thing of like I was afraid, like because I had something to lose. Like I had the thing that I wanted, and at a time like I was afraid to pursue it. All the things I had said I'd ever wanted in a partner, she was proving it, checking the boxes left and right, and there was zero expectations. So a big lesson from that is like, sometimes when fear comes up, like lean into it. It might be telling you something. Like, and I think a lot of us, we feel fear. It's like, I'm about to get hurt, but like also the flip side is like, you might also be on the brink of everything you ever wanted. And there was certainly some hard times and some tests, and I inadvertently put my wife through the ringer. Like well, I had a former client. He's like, and he knew her right as she had as he was right about before he left my facility. But he was like, hey, before you're about to propose, you put them through the tests. And I it always stuck with me. And when it all happened, like I did it. And what I really realized was like, and I've kind of gone around this with my friends, and I do this in a lot of places in my life, is I put people through tests because it's like, these are the tests that I need to see. Like if things get challenging or difficult or whatever in the future, these are things that represents the values that I know if we need to come back to anything, like we have this strong foundation. So my wife has taught me a lot about that, just as being a mirror of like, this is what's possible if you're honest, if you're real, if you're willing to be afraid for a little bit,
Really beautiful. Love it. And in the spirit of, we're always working on those relationships, we've always got stuff to learn. Is there anything you would speak to that you and your wife are either consciously or just instinctively drawn towards to learn, to grow together? Anything that you'd like to say in 6 months' time? Oh, I'd love us to really have nailed that in our relationship.
Well, right now I find myself in a season of learning how to be more patient for her. So one of the things she's told me she loves me for is my ability to challenge her. Um, but what shifted not too recently was not like pretty recently was she's like, because I rely on you because you're trust like I'm like you I feel safe with you, which is ironic because the two things don't necessarily go hand in hand, or they don't
No.
seemingly go hand in hand. um, so I'm at a space in my life where I need to be patient, allowing her to go through what I see as a big self transformation journey. She's going on her own development path as like a leader and going inward. She's 6, 7 years younger than I am, and she afforded me the opportunity to figure myself out in my late 20s, early 30s, and I'm finding like this is my time to hold that
Lovely.
space, to make sure she feels
Lovely.
safe for that. And that's difficult for me because like I see the answer. I think a lot of men are like,
Mhm.
my wife has this problem, I want to solve it.
I can fix this.
I can fix it. And it's really difficult for me to just shut my mouth and
Yeah.
listen. And for me, I try to just bring in resources because I'm highly biased and I don't care, but I think my wife is on this planet to change the world. She's
Mhm.
massively gifted. I watch her with the kids when she's working at school, and like she just can like reach inside their soul and like make their day. It's unreal. And if like we could bottle that, I'm like we could change the world.
Come on.
So I find myself in a space right now where I need to help put her around people that are inspiring leaders, especially like stronger women who have dealt with leadership problems and helping to navigate developing other people. And more importantly for me, it's like holding her accountable to making sure she takes care of herself. That's something that's really important to me right now. And I know she struggles with it because she feels guilty allowing herself to like take care of herself. And
Mhm.
um, that's an interesting space for me to be right now.
Mm. The last thing you said about holding each other accountable, that's really interesting to me. So on the one hand, kind of you're pulling back, you're holding some of those things in and resisting, short circuiting a process that's got to come fully through. But on the other hand, yeah, how does that work? Wonder if you could let us into what it's like on the inside for you both. How does accountability work? How does it work really well? Maybe how does it not work?
Uh, I'll go with when it's not working well.
It's a
I'll
bit
start
easy that one,
there.
isn't
Yeah. Usually it's me feeling, ultimately, it starts with me feeling inadequate as a partner, not being able to help solve her
it?
problem immediately. So when that happens, I'm shorter with my tone. I don't ask the right questions. I don't hold the space. And I'm very quick to judge and push. And I can like go full throttle because I'm ready to be in it. When it's going better, it's saying, hey, where are you at right now? What's your timeline on certain things? And it's also just me just like saying and taking her at her word and saying, hey, I
Mhm.
am thinking about it, I'm working
Yeah,
on it.
yeah,
And that's oh, I
yeah,
mean, if there's something that drives me insane, like it's being patient in those moments, because I'm like, here's 9 people in 9 places we could do this, but
yeah.
she thinks so
Yeah,
much differently. And I
yeah.
think because she's very processed and like here's step by step by step, and I just see the end line. That's just the way our dynamics work. But it's also me respecting, like there's a lot of value in what she's doing, because especially with me, it's like it's knowing how to also, like it makes me a better coach, because how do I make a
Yeah,
step smaller for somebody else that's not my wife, like that's somebody who might be paying me to be like, hey, can you help dose this? And
yeah.
that really helps me slow down to like, oh, like that's where that one person is.
Mm.
Got it. And that spot might take a little longer, and that's okay. So her holding me accountable, usually it's just like it actually, what's really ironic about that is she just needs, every time, because I'm going to push myself, her, it comes down to, before I make a big decision, she just needs to remind me that like it's okay to fail. And that's I didn't realize how important that was. There was an investment that I made a year or so ago, shelled out a couple grand, and I was like, you know what? I realized real quick I was in the wrong spot. And I turned to her and I was like, I felt bad, like I took a risk on this thing, and I was like, but this is not the right thing for me. And she's like, I'd rather you be happy. Cool.
Yeah.
Just do it. It's okay.
Yeah.
You learned something, right? So in the paradigm of our relationship, and what I'm starting to learn is like a lot of people play those two different roles. Like, you know, it's not necessarily man versus woman. Like as one specifically, I think masculine energies tend to lie like certain ways and the other way. But for us, that's how it plays out. Her just saying like, giving me permission to go out and experiment and fail allows me to learn really quickly. That's been really valuable in terms of holding me accountable to just like, hey, you don't need to beat yourself up every bloody day. Like you're a human being too, by the way. So yeah.
That's lovely. It's great that you two have worked out those ways of calling each other out. And it's her non-judgment, it's her freedom, it's her compassion that feels to you like accountability. Who knew?
It's wild. It does feel
wild,
like
isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And I mean, the more I see all this stuff, like I was having a great conversation with some friends, like it surprises me every day how small the actual things people need to do to like actually make somebody feel appreciated and loved. It's pretty wild to me. It's not, and again, this is coming from a person who always thinks it has to be some big production. So somebody's like, yeah, I love you, or I care about what you did, and this was great. It's usually like a very simple, like you held space, or you gave me permission to fail, or whatever it is. So if nothing else, I hope people realize like it's the small, simple things and done consistently that really are going to be what adds up.
That is such really brilliant wisdom, that one.
I've been fortunate enough to have plenty of smart people tell me that, so it kept pounding it into my head.
It's very true. And Caleb, just talk a little for a moment. We're coming into land, but you work with couples in your coaching work. Tell us what you do with that.
So the reason why I like to work with couples primarily is because something I learned in the gym. So I have this philosophy: you either grow together or you grow apart. And I'll describe it. It's a little crass. I'll use the more stereotypical version I witnessed in the fitness industry. It was always a woman joins a gym, a woman loses a bunch of weight, a woman has an affair with another client or their trainer, woman gets divorced, and then the very crass part, woman gets fake boobs with ex-husband's money. Now, I've seen it play out on all sides. So I use the stereotypical version because it usually gets a reaction, makes people go, oh, wait, like I've seen that. You see it in all the movies.
We've all seen that.
We've all seen it. But what I hope people start to actually take in, and what I zoomed out and realized was it wasn't about the weight loss. It wasn't about that. It was that they were going on a growth journey, and their partner, we'll call it their husband in that situation, was choosing not to grow. And when people get to a certain breaking point on their journey, they're like, I'm not willing to stay here anymore. They're gonna go somewhere else. Now, it could be a breakup. It could be there's 1,000 different ways this could go, but especially when it comes to anybody who owns a business, and I work with a lot of people who as a couple, they own a business. I think there's a beautiful thing about a baby has been born of them, of their mind, this business that is hopefully inspiring change and taking care of a lot of people and feeding a lot of beautiful families. But a lot of times we forget how to stay aligned. So first and foremost, it's like, well, are you spending enough time on your own self-care? Are you doing the type of work that really fills your cup, that makes you feel valuable, that makes you feel inspired, that makes you feel energized? And then are you also spending enough time connecting with the people you love? And it's not just the marriage. I think not enough people, we were just talking about before this, like my wife's been away for 5 days and I've loved my alone time. I have a boys' night every Wednesday where my friends and I, we have dinner religiously. Nothing else gets put on the books there. I don't plan anything. I make specific time for these other relationships that also round me out as a human being. And then when I come back to my time, my date nights with my wife, which is usually the number one exercise that I recommend for people, it's like I have something interesting to say. I'm inspired from my work. I feel good in my body. Our conversations are more uplifting, more enlightening. And who doesn't want to be around that? I think it's like the honeymoon period when you first start dating. You can't keep your hands off each other. You feel like, man, you're inspiring.
Mhm.
How that works out, it's a step-by-step thing. It's a lot of habits. It's about mindset. It's about learning how to communicate. Every marriage, I would dare say, goes like, well, it's all about communication. Well, so is business, and so is self-care. It's a conversation with
Yeah.
yourself. It's a relationship with yourself. So I think, the reason why I like having a couple do it together is like they can get aligned and they can get honest about what they both want, and they can see the vision together of the future. And like one of the big premises for me is like, I'm not going to babysit you, because I'm not going to be at home with you. When I was coaching primarily fitness stuff, it was like, I'm not going to go home and stuff the broccoli in your face. I'm not going to be the one to cook your food. You need me to not be there. You need me to remove myself from that equation. Having a partner who is devoted and caring about the life you're creating together is going to say, hey, by the way, you're going to know their tendencies. You're going to see their body language. My wife knows if I had a bad day the second I'm walking up the stairs, just from the sound of my feet. That's insane. That's insane.
Crazy.
I think every wife could pick up on that, and I think every husband could tell, whatever their wife says, nothing's wrong. I'm okay. Everything's fine. It's like,
wow.
no, it's not. How about we have an honest conversation?
Yeah.
But our significant others, our husbands, our wives, when I say my wife gets the rough draft, it's true. Like she gets the most unadulterated, unfiltered, real vision of me, and she can make the most honest assessment of me. The same way I look at my own body, I can just be like, well, I honestly know how I feel in this. I know, man, my hip feels a certain way in this exact spot. No matter how good a practitioner is, there's still third-party information. They're still trying to interpret through my words and all those other things. When you have your partner who gets to see all those intricacies and has enough time under tension, has enough exposure to all your habits, they're the closest thing to you of like feeling what it feels like to be inside of your mind and your body as it gets, while still being more objective. And so hopefully it gets to a point where like, oh, my wife was right, or my husband was right. Like I can just listen the first time. I know I went on a bit of a tangent there, but it really comes down to being honest and being real about, are you spending enough time on those three components, that nexus of happiness stuff? And how are we going about it? How are we curating our life? Are we reorganizing our life? Because most of the expectations, how they set up a business, or how their bodies, like what their exercise is supposed to be like, or what their marriage is supposed to look like, is predicated on what so many other people think about what success is supposed to be. They might not want $10 million, a $10 million year business, because it comes with different responsibilities. They might not want as many employees. Okay. They might want to travel once a year. They might not care about traveling every week. They might want to buy a house while somebody else just wants to rent. There's so many different factors in all of this that I don't see enough people having an honest conversation around. While you drop a habit into the say like, hey, so you're going to do this week, and you're going to do that this week. You're going to hold each other accountable. Well, in that change and that friction, then you find out where the stuff comes up. So that's in coaching, it's like, there we go. We're going to drop stress into the situation. Let's see how we react.
Ooh, conflict. Perfect.
Conflict is perfect. And it's dosed in a way that we can absorb the conflict in a way that's palatable. So I know I think coaching is a very hard thing to tell people, like, what is coaching? Well, we're going to just sit in a room and talk about stuff. Kind of. And then you're going to do some stuff. We're going to talk about it again. It's going to solve, like, kind of. It's more about like, do you feel safe enough to be real about what you care about? And we're going to choose some habits that you say you care about. And then let's see where we go with it. And now you have systems of accountability in place. Yeah.
Fabulous stuff. So interesting. And Caleb, tell me if people want to look you up, if they want to join a program, where do they find you?
Well, you can go to my website. It's nakedsunday.coach. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's Caleb Nelson. I have my Instagram, I have Instagram too. My personal is Leb in Real Life. My handle is, this is a fun one because I didn't have just straight up Naked Sunday. That really bothers me, but it's @_naked_Sunday_. It's the same thing on TikTok. You mentioned the podcast earlier. You're on my podcast. It's called Naked Sunday. I like bright neon colors, so it's bright pink and bright blue and all kinds of fun in there. So More than anything, like check that stuff out. I mean, you're on it. I mean, it's gonna be an amazing it was an amazing conversation. So, oh, there we go. It's just fun having amazing people in my life. So more than anything, I hope people can just get value from that.
Brilliant. I'll make sure all of those links you just mentioned are in the notes for this show. And thank you so much for your generous sharing, not only of your story, but through there, we're peppered so many insights, so many takeaways, so much value that you've given today. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for being in the world and doing your thing.
Well, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it? I hope that if this conversation inspires you, whets your appetite, gets your curiosity going, that you will go and check out Caleb's resources and his work over at Naked Sunday. And I hope that we can continue the conversation. I'd love to know what you thought. You can always get in touch with me, comments on these pages on YouTube and also over on Instagram at Naomi Grace Light. And we will continue the conversation about how do you create a life that you love? How do you work together with your partner to both pursue your passions but remain connected and genuinely have a zest and an enjoyment for the life that you're working on together? I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. I've got some more thoughts about that. So for more insights into self-awareness, into your relationship with yourself and others, head over to Naomi Light, and obviously subscribe and check out the other videos I've made available here. See you soon.